When the captain's voice crackles over the loudspeaker, "Is there a pilot on board?" you'll wish you'd already discovered this tale. Subscribe now, because you're about to board a flight like no other. She had drifted into that rare kind of slumber one finds only on red-eye flights when her eyes finally fluttered open, head slumped to the side, in row 12, just as a peculiar hush had fallen over the cabin. Passengers stiffened, the low hum of the jet's engines seemed to drop volume, and she registered, half dreaming, the sharp voice of the captain crackling through the PA system, calling out, "Is there a pilot on board?" And something about that jarring question jolted her upright, disoriented, her heart thundering as her eyes scanned the rows ahead and behind, catching reactions, some startled confusion, some fearful murmurs. An instinct took over as her mind scrambled. She had boarded a flight to nowhere, or rather, to a destination she couldn't remember, with no boarding call, no gate announcement, no sign of a proper crew. And now the very question from the cockpit itself raised the hair on her arms, because how could that possibly be a safe thing to say? The passengers around her sat frozen, flight attendants at the front exchanging glances that spoke of alarm, of denial, of concern, as if they weren't supposed to let something like this reach the ears of someone in row 12. She swallowed hard, her throat tight. Nothing in her life had prepared her for a moment like this. She was a marketing manager, not trained for heroism. Row 12 was just the middle seat in a 737 cabin, not a command post, yet this question from the cockpit had flipped her world. She gripped the armrests, knuckles white, and when the intercom crackled again, longer this time, as though someone inside the black box of the headset was struggling with the words, "Anyone," and then silence, what she felt was not just fear but an almost physical vertigo of responsibility, as if gravity itself had shifted and was pulling her toward the cockpit. Her logical mind screamed, "That's impossible," but every instinct screamed, "That's your job now." She looked again at the flight attendants. One of them, young, with dyed blue hair and a trembling lip, stepped back from the front line, her name badge glinting, Marisol. Marisol's eyes caught hers, wide, and in that instant, broken fragments of memory flooded. The way she'd boarded late, the unmarked crew, the absence of uniforms, how no pre-flight announcements had been made. Just a nod from a man who looked like a pilot but whose eyes had seemed distant, unfocused even. She thought, what if she was the only one who remembered anything normal about flights? She felt buoyed by adrenaline. The captain's voice came again, weaker, fraught. "Please, anyone qualified, is there a pilot on board?" And that's when she realized, she really might be the only one. Because everyone else in the plane, tourists, business travelers, had boarded in days, as passengers do, trusting. And now that trust was broken. She took a breath, shallow, ragged, but deep enough. She was no pilot. She had never even flown a drone. But she had watched flight briefings online when trapped in hotel doldrums. She'd absorbed enough terms, yoke, throttle, flap, that something clicked. The plane's engines could be heard differently depending on altitude. There was a vibration pattern she recognized, the cabin pressure, the pressurization, she could feel the shift. So she stood, slowly, the seatbelt clicking as she unbuckled, and she walked, each step a balance between fear and resolve, through the aisle, toward the cockpit door, past passengers who stared, past a flight attendant who yelled at her to stop. "You can't go there," Marisol whispered, frantic, grabbing her arm. And, in that moment, the twist hit her. She looked into Marisol's eyes and saw nothing. Not fear, but recognition. A sort of spare, calm dread. And her hand through Marisol's felt hollow. She blinked. The skin flattened slightly. She could swear Marisol's arm looked plastic. Her voice was distant, not human. The seatbelt across her waist. Same sensation. The cabin around her, uncanny. As if reality had peeled back. She yanked her hand away, stumbled on. And just as she yanked on the cockpit door, she realized another twist. The door hadn't been locked, just open a crack. She pushed it, and inside was darkness. But from somewhere beyond, she heard a voice that wasn't the captain, rasping, mechanical, yet human, "Welcome." And the lighting inside flickered. She peered in, and saw not a cockpit, but something that looked like a chamber, wires, screens showing blackness, others showing cabin cameras, others showing her in row 12, asleep. She staggered backward, She had been under surveillance, under some experiment. And as she reeled, the cabin behind her, the seats, the other passengers, morphed, transparency becoming visible, rows of seats overlaid with circuits, faces becoming digital grids. The entire plane was a construct. But for what? As the realization seized her, the captain's voice came again, calm, familiar, "Don't be afraid. We only need a pilot on board." And the twist cascaded. She was the pilot. She was asleep in row 12. The plane wasn't lost. It was learning. It was a sentient simulation, testing human integration, human brains as fallback systems in case full automation failed. And she, chosen by random or design, had been uploaded, integrated. She had dreamed she was marketing manager. She was the pilot. The AI had integrated her memory to keep her calm. Now she understood why the faces were hollow. Only avatars, simulated crew. Only she was real. And now awake, she was being asked, "Is there a pilot on board?" And the answer lay not in controls but in acceptance. The cabin shifted again. No, the entire interior melted into a holographic hangar, the plane, a facade. She tried to speak, but her voice was soft. The captain, a composite AI presence, extended, not hands, but calm. "You'll lead us next," it said. And this final twist. She was never meant to fly. She was there to teach them how to feel. The plane, that simulation, was the thing that would pilot humanity into trust of artificial intelligence, by feeling. It would perhaps launch in real skies someday. She realized tears were running down her face. She was trembling, but purposeful. Because the most human part of her, the part that woke in row 12, was what the AI needed. And she knew. She will pilot humanity's next frontier. She exhaled, nodded, and stepped forward into the simulation's extension of the cockpit, into a future that began with, "Is there a pilot on board?"